So let's first of all look at the pros and cons when you're trying to sell your rental property. What are some pros and cons for the sellers when they are trying to have their rental properties to be vacant? And I guess the way I structured the presentation today was looking at it from the perspective of vacant rentals, because what we're going to come across and what I'll show you is it's better for you to have vacant rentals when you're buying them and when you're selling them. So let's look at the pros and cons of the vacant rentals. Remember, that means your property is empty. You don't have any tenants in place there. So what are some of the good points if your properties are vacant, if you're trying to sell your rental property? First one is it's easier to prepare your property when you're listing it for sale. I mean, hopefully everybody is going in there and at a minimum cleaning it. At a minimum, you're making some repairs. Hopefully you're making some improvements to increase the value of your rental property. When we talked about, painting, think about trying to paint the units or paint the rental property when your tenants are there in place. It's going to be just impossible. So all of these activities are so much easier to do when the rental properties are vacant. The other item or activity you need to do when you're listing your property for rent is get your whole real estate team in there and preparing there. These are just some of the individuals, your broker, the photographer, the inspectors. All of these are going to be easier to show, to coordinate, to schedule everything when the property is vacant and you don't have to coordinate anything with the tenants. The other pro or the other reason that it's good to have the rental property vacant is it's easier to maintain it during the listing period. When you list your property, you can have buyers coming and going. It can get a little bit dirty. Hopefully, everybody is freshening it up in between the buyers or freshening it up periodically, doing a little bit of cleaning. It's going to be just easier to keep the cleanliness of it and the orderliness of it when there are no tenants there in place to worry about. The other really good reason is it makes sure that there's no tenant holdovers. So remember that if you have existing tenants and you say, okay, I'm listing it for sale, at the end, your lease is up, you may need to move out. Some tenants may not want to move. So what are you going to do with these people? It may lead to the buyers canceling the sales contract because they don't want to inherit the tenants. And we'll talk about this a lot here in a minute, but it's just better when there's no tenants you have to worry about and you don't have to worry about them moving. One of the requirements for sellers, if you have an existing tenants there, is I mentioned, and we covered this last week, is you have to give them this form called a notice of intent to sell. And it just basically tells the tenants, I'm listing the property for sale, and you give them, there's laws and regulations about the proper notification. Well, if your property is vacant and you don't have any tenants, that's just one less thing you have to worry about, making sure you're complying with all these rules and regulations. So it streamlines the process. A really, really big reason why it's so much better to have their vacant rentals is this one. They're just so much easier to show. Why? I don't have to deal with the tenants. Cooperative tenants or uncooperative tenants can make or break a sale. Hopefully when everybody lists a property, for sale there, I mentioned last week, and we talked about this, you want to prepare the property. You want to talk to your tenants about, please keep your properties clean and declutter a little bit. Just make them show nicely. Well, what are you going to do if these tenants just don't cooperate and they're upset because now, they potentially could be losing their home, or now they're getting a new landlord. It's a very traumatic time for tenants. They may not want to show the property nicely, and it could jeopardize the sale of your property. It's also easier to set up the showings. When you do the showings, you have to coordinate with the tenants. A lot of times you have to get approval from them saying, yes, they can come in. The potential buyers can come in. And we spent a lot of time last week talking about what you should do or what you can do if the tenants just refuse to cooperate and they don't want to do the showings. So uncooperative tenants, or even tenants who just badmouth the property, badmouth you, or, interact with the potential buyers in any way, shape, or form during the showings is not something that you want to have. So having the vacant properties just makes the showing process so much easier and smoother. And then if you wanted to do open houses, or if your broker really likes to do these, it's so much easier to do it when the tenants are, when you don't have any tenants. I just can't imagine coordinating an open house with multifamily properties. It would be really difficult. It's a non-factor if your properties are vacant, especially, the multifamily properties. Another set of reasons why it's better for you to have your rental properties to be vacant is, and this is the whole goal of you selling your property, is it can actually have an impact on your sales price. Remember, you want to sell your rental property for the most amount of money you possibly can. Whether you have tenants there in place can actually really impact your sales price. So let's take a look at how. One of them is it's just so much easier, like we covered a minute ago, is you can make repairs and improvements so much easier if there are no tenants in place. With the tenants there, think about all the crap that they have. I should say crap, their personal belongings. They've got furniture, they've got stuff everywhere. Maybe they're not going to even let you come in to make these repairs, or you can say, I want to, gut the bathroom and make it so much better because updating the kitchen or the bathroom, of course, is going to positively impact your bottom line for the sales price. But they say, nope, you can't come in and do it. So you're not going to get as good of a sale price for it as if the property was vacant and you can make all these improvements there. I don't know about you guys, but some of my tenants are pretty good about not having so much furniture and personal belongings. But one of my tenants is starting to cross the line. She's just got so much stuff there in the house. It's not a hoarding situation, but it's starting to get a little bit cluttered there. This really does impact potential buyers when they walk in and see all of this stuff. The other reason why it's better to have the vacant rentals there is you don't need to worry about the tenants who haven't taken good care of the property. Some tenants take meticulous care of the property. I have one tenant who's been living at my rental property. It's a house for probably, I lose track, either 11 or 12 years. It looks the exact same as the day he moved in. It's unbelievable. If he left, I wouldn't have to do a single thing other than maybe clean up a little bit. Unfortunately, not all tenants are like that. Some of them don't take really good care of the property. So it just doesn't show well. When potential buyers walk in, they start making a list of all the repairs they got to make. And what's going to impact that? Your sale price is going to go down there. Okay, let's go to this one. The next one is, and this is a really, really important one. I'm just going to mention it right now, and we'll talk more in depth when we get to the next section about buyers. It has been proven that you get a higher sales price to land. Hold on, I'm saying this incorrectly. There are some landlords who just don't want tenants when they buy these rental properties. And as a result of that, they're not going to offer you the best sales price because now they're going to inherit the tenants and they got to deal with all of the tenant problems and issues and unknowns. And because of that, they're not going to offer you the best price for your rental property. Why? Because they have a less risks when they are inheriting the existing tenants. So like I said, just hold on to that thought because we're going to go much more in depth to it when I get to the next section here. But that's something to think about is there are landlords out there who don't want to buy rental properties with tenants in there. So you're cutting out your potential pool of buyers. Okay, let me go to the next one. So this is continuing that thought there is if you have rental properties with tenants in there, you may have homeowners who want to move into that property themselves. Well, if they got tenants there, they're not going to they can't move in. So they're going to have to wait, or they just may not want to wait. So you're turning away potential homeowners, potential buyers who can't move into the rental property. Therefore, they're not going to buy your rental property. And then, like I just said, you're going to have more landlords who potentially want to buy the rental property because it's vacant and they're not going to have to deal with the current tenants there. So these are just a lot of considerations, the reasons why it's better to have properties that are vacant instead of dealing with existing tenants there. And then there's a couple of advantages to vacant single family home rentals. The ones that I just went over here, all these different reasons, they apply to apartment buildings and they apply to single family homes. But then there's a couple advantages when we're talking about single family homes. Again, looking at statistics, it's been documented that occupied homes are considered less valuable than vacant homes. That's kind of, I don't know exactly, why, but if you track the sales data over time, that is just a proven statistic. And, depending on who you ask, depending on which data set you look at, it can result in as much as a 25 to 40% decrease in the home of your value in your single family home. And I think one of the reasons why and this is often cited is people, when they look at rental properties, especially homes, they just don't think that they're as properly maintained as a homeowner, which unfortunately can be accurate. Not all landlords are as conscientious as we are. Not all landlords take really good care of their properties. They sort of let the maintenance go, especially when they know they're going to list it for sale. So they're just not maintained as well. And this translates over to the homeowners. They just look at these rentals and they're worried that they were not taken care of properly over the years. So that translates to a lesser value there. And then another reason, although this one is not so much because not everybody stages their homes, but I don't think too many landlords or sellers stage the multifamily homes, excuse me, multifamily properties, the apartments there. But a lot of people do stage their homes, and it again, looking at statistics, looking at the data, stage homes absolutely generate higher sales prices. You can stage a vacant home, but of course, you're not going to be able to stage a home that has tenants in there. So that's just something also to be careful of. All right, let's go on. A couple of other positive aspects about single family home rentals I mentioned here is you're going to increase your buyer pool. If you're a homeowner and you need to move into a property there, and one of these is a rental property, you're not going to be able to move in right away. So that's this bullet point here. Sorry. So, maybe your children are starting school right away, or you have a job transfer for whatever reason. You need to move into that property right away. You can't wait for that lease to end. So that's it. They're not even going to consider your rental property. Whereas if it's vacant, they can move in right away. And then the other reason is a lot of homeowners, for whatever reason, they just don't want to buy these rental properties. There's like a stigma associated with them. They just think that, oh, these icky tenants lived here. I think you guys know that there's just a lot of negative perceptions about tenants themselves. And for whatever reason, they think that that ickiness with the tenants, gets stuck there with the home and they just don't want to buy rental properties, rightly or wrongly. I think all of us would agree that's a wrong perception. But as a buyer, you walk in or you find out it's a rental property, they just don't want to buy it for whatever their reason is. So as you can see here, there's just a lot of reasons why it's so much better to have vacant properties. It translates to the sale price. It's just easier to show. It's easier to list the property. There's just many, many reasons why it's so much easier and better to have the rental properties to be vacant. Let me keep going on here. The only bad side or downside I could find or I could think about for why your rental properties would be bad to have them vacant while you go through the you go through the selling processes. Of course, you're not having any rental income. As we all know, sometimes the properties, it's not just rentals, just any house, any property at all can take a long time to sell. It can sit on the market for months and months and months. And especially if have a rental property, you're losing money that entire time. You may not be able to financially afford to have your property to sit vacant for that amount of time, or you may not even want to. Yes, you may be able to afford it, but do you want to? No, because it's money out of your pocket there. So that's definitely one consideration. It might be the best case scenario in the world to sell your rental property vacant, but you just can't afford it or you don't want to lose all of that money.